you really need to be able to think about how you can deliver your services too. Because at
Yes.
the end of the day, you can have really good marketing strategies and reaching people, but if you're not able to deliver services in a hybrid method, online or whatever, it's going to be a bit of a challenge. So you've got to think about ways, and I encourage you to have that open mindset to sort of think like, how can I help this patient? Because at the end of the day, that's what we got to be health practitioners for, to help people.
Hey, everyone, and welcome back to Patients on Demand. I'm so excited with a special guest this week. We have Brad Cote. And if you have not heard of Brad, well, you should. So that's why we have him on today. He is an osteopath and massage therapist who's owned and run multiple clinics in Canada. And he's a marketing expert who's going to come talk to us about trends and things you need to be looking out for in 2021. So Brad, welcome.
Thanks so much for having me. Excited to be here.
Absolutely. Now, I want to let you go ahead and introduce the audience to yourself, to you a little bit more, and let you tell a little bit about your story and just how you've gotten where you are today.
Of course. So I'm a dual licensed practitioner in Canada, and kind of my career started a little bit earlier. I originally, I've always kind of been in business, since I was very young. I always like to kind of kick off my story of saying I've been a bit more entrepreneurial when I was a kid. I remember being like grade, 3 and 4. I used to get an allowance from my parents. I'd run to the corner store and get, candies for 10 cents and come back and sell them for like 50 to the kids on the playground, and Pokemon cards and all that type of stuff. So kind of always, I guess, been a little more entrepreneurial to some degree. And I've kind of carried that through my, my life as entrepreneur and career. So I actually originally did business in college. Then I ended up going back to school. I was going to go into doing physical therapy. Sort of realized after I did, an internship working in the clinic, that it was people weren't really getting any better, and it was like really volume based, and that kind of started to turn me off. So there was a colleague of mine who was an osteopath who would do manual manipulations and whatnot, and he was getting really good results from patients. So I said, hey, I kind of want to look into sort of other avenues. So I ended up going back to school, ended up getting my RMT and osteopath licenses to kind of treat people. During that time period, I really did personal training, and I learned a lot during that personal training aspect of my career about sales, marketing, delivering service. And for those of you who don't really know, like, personal training is pretty cutthroat. Like, it's pretty much like you eat what you kill, so to speak. So you've got to really understand like the marketing principles, like the grit, the hard work to kind of get those client bases, because, it's not covered by insurance by any means. It's really kind of more of a luxury service. So you've got to have really good positioning. So that kind of like really kicked off my understanding for like how to really structure your sales process, marketing, like deliverability of programs. So that way, when I ended up starting getting into treatments, I really adopted those principles. So in personal training, we talk about the solution that people would want. So, some trainers would sell you 2 or 3 sessions or 10 sessions here and there for, maybe $1,000. And I would be selling people like years of like a year of training. I still remember, 144 sessions, 12 sessions a month for a year, 144 sessions, it'd be like 10 grand. And I started like focusing and obsessing with, well, how do I sell this? Not necessarily just to make money, but knowing that most clients who have 30 pounds to lose, their back's all messed up, they need more than just a couple personal training sessions or whatever. So I started to adopt those concepts into my therapy, and kind of created my own system utilizing manual therapy modalities, as well as like integrating corrective exercise, functional neurology, and that type of stuff. So kind of developed my own system, had some success in my solo practice, started transitioning to therapy, was lucky enough to work with NFL, NHL players for about 2.5 years, then came back and started really on my clinics and growing from that aspect as I sort of transitioned. Naturally, I had a lot of success, partly because I invested a lot of time into business and marketing and sales and that type of stuff. So had a lot of success, and people kind of asked me, well, how do you get new clients and patients like this, and how do you grow this practice? So started kind of just getting into consulting naturally that way, and over the time started to realize I'm less enamored with the like the deliverability of the treatment of people and being the face of the business. And originally I wanted to have franchises and realized it's not super leverageable in terms of the lifestyle and business that I want. And I could really help more people realistically if I can help them get more clients and patients. And I've got a little bit more skill set for that kind of strategic planning side. So that's pretty much where I started to transition my business. I actually sold one business, a gym clinic, just prior to kind of like shutdowns last year. So that way I had a little bit more leverage, and now I'm kind of working with some clinics on the back end, doing the strategic planning, marketing, and that type of stuff. So that's pretty much my story of how I got to here. Yeah, I'm excited to share some of my tips and what I think is going to happen in the coming year.
Yeah. So obviously 2020 was a wee bit crazy. And yet, clinics have survived. Clinics have been able to adapt with the right moves, with the right confidence, with the not getting lost in all that is and making excuses of 2020. And yet some clinics have really struggled. And we see it a lot regionally, right? It's just been different. I mean, I was at a mastermind this weekend, and several people, were joining in virtually, and it basically they got shut down, not their clinics because healthcare stayed open, but their entire state got shut down on Friday, right? Before this mastermind. So people are facing different challenges I think that are going to come and go and change. They're not going to be the same. And I'll say it, I'll be brutally honest, guys. Anyone who thinks 2021 is just going to magically change when we hit the calendar from December 31st to 1st is lying to themselves, especially if you're a business owner. And so I think, Brad, we're looking forward to some of your insights of giving us where we need to focus, what we need to think about when it comes to our marketing as we're looking in 2021. So what are you seeing? Like, what's some advice you can give our listeners who are clinic owners and are looking to continue growing? They've got people to serve. Some of them have just lost jobs, and that's why they're getting into this. Some of them have been doing this 15 years. And of course, this was one of the craziest challenges they've been thrown, but they're still standing. So what advice do you have for them? What do you think's coming?
Yeah, and I totally agree. I think there's going to be a lot of uncertainty. I mean, as we speak, right now, November 19th, there's our premier of Ontario is looking at, massive shutdowns potentially again, because we have rise in COVID cases. So there, there's always going to be uncertainty. And the reality is that, as business owners, and for those of you who know me, I'm usually a little more direct and kind of like a no BS approach to it. But it's your responsibility as the business owner, kind of like pivot and adapt. And I will say like this, it's really the same concepts, that I started kind of sharing and talking about earlier this year into March, when things started to like kind of go downhill on that slippery slope. And I remember talking to Jerry Durham, who's another physical therapist, and really
Jerry's
helps
cool.
people with their businesses and stuff. And we kind of had like a couple of chats in this mastermind group. And I really think that this is a fundamental that started back then, but really needs to be implemented. And if you haven't implemented, it's going to be really important. And the first step is really communicating and over communicating with the clients.
Yes.
So a couple things that I noticed is that the clinics that sort of panicked, or the people who panicked and didn't communicate with their patients and clients, a lot of them were at a loss because they made it, I guess, a little bit about them to some degree, and panic, which I totally understand. But if you're not communicating with your patients or clients, then it's going to be a challenge for them to stay top of mind and know that you have the best interest at heart. So one thing I always really recommend is, especially now, and even like where we are, now with potential shutdowns, just over communicating with people and saying like, hey, we don't really know what's going to happen. We're in the same boat as you, but we're here to help you, maintain as best as you can. So if we do get shut down, here's some potential options that we have, whether that's virtual, whether that's, specific like gear that you got to wear, or like cleaning policies, or whatever it is, just like over communicate so that people can really feel at ease. And I think that that's something that's going to be really remain true into 2021, because if you're feeling uncertainty, so is everyone else. And the more that you can communicate to the patients and give them options and ask them what they want, the better. So earlier this year, like one of the clinics that I was doing some of the stuff in the back end with, we're really just polling the patients and asking them like, are you open to doing treatments virtually? Like, and just sort of seeing what happened. And, that's one way we got revenue going is delivering stuff online. We didn't really have a massive infrastructure for doing it, but you can make the change pretty quickly. And part of it is just like stay on top, communicating, asking your patients what they want. And kind of going from there. There was one report, it was a couple months ago now, that was ran by insurance in Canada. And I can't remember the exact numbers, but there was something like 70% of people polled out of, I think, around 5,000 would say, I'll try virtual based therapy. Mm-hmm. So there are people, I believe, that will do stuff. And if you can position it and sort of, talk about the outcomes, can we get pain relief from home or whatever it is, that's going to be one thing. So I would over communicate with your clients and patients, give them as much certainty as you can, and at least tell them that there's other options, because they might not even think like, can you do a Zoom call with me or docs me or whatever you're using, to help me do some self-care work and some stretches or some isometrics or whatever it is. They might not even think about that. So the more you really give them the options, the more that you can, transition, and at least you're staying on top of it.
Yeah, we've talked some about how making it just part of the plan of care. Like when you're bringing people on, it's like, hey, this is what's going to happen. And you know what? If it shuts down, that's no big deal, because we're going to continue your plan of care this way. And just making it like the standard, like this is normal. This isn't out of the ordinary. Like we've been dealing with this for months. We know it works. This is how we work. I think you're so right, because people they're letting their own uncertainties and fears spill out into how they're managing the business. And I know that's hard not to do, but it's also something to be so self-aware of, right? Like you can't, if you're not reaching out and even just saying, hey, Mrs. Smith, why aren't you, I know we haven't seen you in a little while. We just want to check and make sure you're okay. Like I know I know a few weeks ago you weren't considering telehealth, but we just want to make sure you're okay. Like, how are you doing? How's that back feeling? 3 weeks later, she might be very willing to try it again, and it's just giving a crap about your patients, right? And communicating with them.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that's, a huge component. What you said earlier is like, I started kind of calling this, I don't know if someone's already taken it or not, but like kind of a hybrid method where we're utilizing, and I know there's some personal training facilities with clinics, and that's kind of what we're doing, is saying, okay, well, we can do stuff virtually or supplement it. And just, this is just the way it is. And like, if your sales process is really focused on the solutions, well, this is a solution you can get there. It is what it is. And yeah, people are going to object. We've had people object too, but it's just following up with them and saying, hey, Christine, yeah, I know you had some low back pain. You couldn't come into the clinic. Just want to see if there's anything I can do to help you.
Right.
And actually just sort of have some compassion in the calls, and, staying on top of that will pay you back huge, because large clinics are not doing anything. And that's why, especially if you're a cash-based practice or a solo practitioner or smaller, kind of more what I call premium experience clinic, this is what's going to really set you apart, because big clinics and stuff are not doing it. I'm seeing that, it's difficult to call, there's no one working there. It's autoresponders. Like now's the time to actually kind of capture people and make offers and stuff.
Absolutely. I think you made such a good point there, which is if your marketing message has already been around the patient experience and their outcome, this transition is going to be a lot easier. Whereas if your whole marketing pitch has been, hey, we see you one-on-one and we spend an hour with you and you've been trying to win people that way, yeah, it's going to be a lot harder to then all of a sudden try to convince those people telehealth's going to be okay. Or, checking in other ways, like if you're personal trainers, via trackers or whatever, like you're not going to win that. But if anything, this gives you the opportunity to realize, this is why my message was too narrow and one-sided in thinking you assume you know what the patient wants. And nobody Googles one-on-one PT. Like the search volume of that is, okay, so I'll give it maybe one or two people, but like the search volume is so tiny. And if your marketing message has been all around that, no wonder you're going to have trouble switching them to telehealth, right?
Yeah, I totally agree. So that's one thing, is like, you're going to really, going into 2020 or 2021, is really having more messaging based on the outcomes specifically now, and then making sure that you're able to have an ability to deliver your services other ways.
Yeah.
And, if you even as like massage therapists, I get it all the time. How do I do massage therapy online? Well, you know what? There's niches of people who want help. They can do self treatments. There's
Yeah.
lots of different ways to deliver it. So it really is, you're just limited kind of by your mindset and your opportunities because other people are doing it. I know I've done stuff myself, pivoted, and whatnot. So
Exactly. I mean, coming back to that one-on-one manual therapy specialist, we do hands-on, blah, 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 right? Same as the massage therapist problem. If that's all you've been talking about, good luck getting those people on telehealth. Like, you got to reframe everybody before you're going to succeed there.
yeah, for
So,
sure.
okay, we need to over communicate. That's number one. What else do we need to do?
I really think like the marketing itself is starting to evolve a little bit. And one thing that I've really noticed is like one of the most effective like tools I used like as a solo practitioner, like when I first started, was like joint ventures and workshops. So workshops, like traditionally for me, have always been really good because it's like kind of a point of value. It's relationship building, and they've always been like super leverageable because you're selling one to many instead of one to one in terms of like consultations. You can build a community and so on. What I've really been experimenting with is actually just taking the workshops and running them as webinars and running them even as evergreen webinars, which I find to be a little bit more, a little bit better, and actually delivering content in a different way. And what I'm seeing is like most people market, especially physical therapy, the same way. Here's a discount voucher. Here's a report. And I'm just finding like the problem is that if you look at like Eugene Schwartz as a marketer, he talks about like the 4 stages of, where people are. And he talks about market sophistication, for example. And so market sophistication is like when the market is unsophisticated, people don't know about it. They don't know what's going on. Like, for example, like, that's like really niche type, like ART or something. Like people don't really know exactly what that is. But as it becomes more popularized, the market sophistication is more advanced. You have to market and have different, more messaging because people have heard it all. They've seen it all. Everyone's seeing these voucher ads. Hey, your area, I have 6 vouchers for pain relief. Like, they still will work and pull to some degree, but I'm finding that like I'm having more success positioning things differently, making micro webinars. Hey, here's a 5-part mini series that you can download to get pain-free at home, low back pain. So sure, I send you the report that no one's ever going to read. And then videos every single day. Hey, Christine, here's a stretch you can do to help your low back. Hey, Christine, here's an exercise you can do to help with your low back, and just having call to action. I'm finding that like it's actually building a bit more preeminence. It's cheaper overall because you're getting higher quality leads and you can reach more people. So I think the whole marketing strategy itself is going to need to change to provide more value, but to get away from what everyone else is marketing. So I'm taking a lot of those concepts as, kind of like the online marketing world and putting them into health practices, which I haven't really seen too many people really do. So I think it's like really delivering your offers, how you're delivering your service, and positioning yourself is going to be significantly different in 2021 if you want to really pull your business in the right direction and not sort of stagnate.
I agree. We actually have at least one, I think a couple more coming, clients who we've pivoted that way. All the free tips reports came down and they're now all mini webinars with opt-in, like as an opt-in option. And it's working well. I mean, it's just one of those things that, once again, people think when they crack the marketing code, they will never have to make a change again. When they think they've built their website once, they'll never have to make a change again. It'll just work ongoing indefinitely. But really, all of this, the marketing, the website, the business, it's like sowing a small tree to grow into a massive, like a small seedling into a massive, amazing tree that survives for a long period of time. Like, it changes. It needs different care. You have to grow it in different ways. And you can't just stick to the one thing and think it's going to work indefinitely. And I think 2021 is a huge time where people need to start experimenting. I'm totally with you. And we've seen the same success with the mini webinars right now. But it's funny, in a year or two, we'll be talking about something else.
It just evolves. And I think it's like, this isn't just like 2020, 2021. This is just kind of like my opinion overall. It's that like, if you really want to be able to grow your business, you need to look at all other avenues and other industries and so on. Jay Abraham, is like a
Yes.
mentor, I guess, of mine. I've done a lot of his stuff, and he just looks at things differently. And I think it's really helped me to kind of identify different trends and look at what different things are. But there's kind of like, you want to be more innovative to some capacity and always be testing to see if you can get better.
Yes.
And
Yes.
I find that, and this is the same with everything. I remember even when I was working with personal trainers, what's the fat loss program that I can get? I hear it all the time. What's the best Facebook ad? Well, it's really contextual to some degree. Yes, I can give you a template. You're going to get leads from it. But if you don't have a sales process, you're not going to be able to convert them. You can't retain them if you don't have a retention and so on. So
Yep.
it's all really contextual. So if you really want to be successful, it's going to be more challenging because there's more uncertainty. The more uncertainty there is with jobs, with who knows, elections, riots, like none of that stuff is going to go away. I actually think it's going to perpetuate to getting worse because there's more social media coverage. Everyone's got a phone, they can live stream. Everything is in the public's eye, so to speak. So you're really going to need to look at less tactics and more overall strategy, and look at what trends are working. Like, think about how, if I'm the patient, like really understanding them, and that goes back to messaging, like,
Once again, yeah. And how well
really,
you
like,
know them.
how can I deliver value to them? What would they want? How do I make them feel better? Like, if you're thinking on that sort of macro level instead of the micro tactics, well, how do I get people in and whatever, you're going to have more success overall. And I know that's not very vague to some capacity, but the tactics will only get you certain results. So if you get more leads coming in, great, but if you can't convert them and you shut down again, like it's problematic. So I would say really, like, that's one thing to consider, is you want to kind of switch your mindset. And because so many people are advertising online, they're exposed to so much more. This market sophistication is exponentially growing faster. So people are getting more market blind. They're getting burned out more, even from coaches and stuff. Like, everyone's a coach now. Everyone's helping with everything. Which, I believe there's some people who are just trying to make money, and there's some people who are like actually have good intentions. But, people are getting market blind to some capacity. So you need to really, change what you're doing in terms of your marketing message and how you think about it. It's less tactics based. It's more like, how am I going to create something that's going to, get the response or get the desired outcome that I want, knowing that, like, I'm going to need to, like, sort of adapt this overall.
Yeah. And one of my business coaches has been telling me, like, we're in a recession and you're going to have to work actually twice as hard to make the same amount of money as you were before all this. But I'm starting to realize at first, like, I was thinking about that and I'm like, that sounds miserable. But what I'm starting to understand what he means by that isn't necessarily that I'm going to have to now work 80 hours. It's actually that I'm going to have to work twice as hard strategically to make this work. And I think there's such a big distinction there. In other words, like, I might have been able to fly by the seat of my pants on tactics, but that's not the case anymore. It's got to be all strategic decisions, which is going back to the marketing, going back to the website. Once again, you're like, maybe your population is totally, like, has no desire for a free tips report. Like, that's just not something they download. Like, ask them next time they're in the clinic, like, do you download those things when you see them online, like for other industries? Do you download those sort of things? The answer is no. Like, you really should be considering, what do they do then? Like, how are they consuming media? And I think so many people, it's like, great. Like you said, we can tell people what works for most people, but I've tried more than anything in my programs to teach them to critically think about, once again, I think it comes down to, you can't make all those strategies decisions if you don't know who you're serving and you don't know them better than you know yourself. Right. And that's where you're pointing out here. It's like, hey, the mini webinar thing, like, you just got to give it a try. You got to put them out there. You got to see how your audience reacts to it. You might have found something fresh. If it doesn't work, great. What's the next thing we can try?
Yeah. And that's, like, I always say, it's like, business owner, you have to be solutions oriented, because if you're not, you will burn yourself out and it will be extremely challenging. And I've gotten myself into mindsets where it's very challenging me, with certain aspects of business, but it's like, you've got to have the mindset of always improving, and marketing is always a test, and you need to constantly be testing. And if something works, let's say you're doing amazing results, you've always got to, like, try to see, well, how can I make it better? And why is it working? And, kind of what we're talking about is, like, I know some people will listen to this and be like, dude, I just want to treat people. But, we're kind of talking higher level to some degree. And this is obviously for people who are more business oriented and want to, like, grow their business, and they want to, have something that maybe they can sell or exit in the future, or,
Sure.
create leverage in, and so on. But, it's business is hard, but you've always got to be testing. You've always got to be seeing, okay, well, this is my control. Like, how do I beat it? How do I improve it? And going back to number one, like over communicating and talking to patients, clients is always, you're going to get a lot of feedback from that. And I think a lot of people
Yes.
overlook that.
Yes, because that's how you make these strategic decisions moving forward. So yeah, we're kind of growing on the ladder here. The first was like here's what you can do now, you guys. Are you over communicating with your clients? What's your strategy around that on winning them back, even when they're nervous? We're seeing plenty of people who keep following up with their patients who weren't willing to come in, are all of a sudden coming in again, despite the fact like maybe the city just shut down. They finally decided they're going to come in, oh, the irony, right? And then the second point being, gosh, you've got to test out new strategies, right? You've got to see what resonates. You've got to not be stuck in just only doing the things that you see everybody else around you doing. It's hard, it is that if you want to be that true business owner, like the strategy has to become so much more a part of your day, of your planning, of what you're doing. And I think that you hit that home. Well, do you have one last one you want to share with us before we wrap?
Yeah. I mean, we kind of, gave people some higher level thinking. But the big thing is like, I would say, in order to be really successful, you're going to need to do the stuff that we chatted about, but you really need to be able to think about how you can deliver your services too. Because at the end of the day, you can have really good marketing strategies and reaching people, but if you're not able to deliver services in a hybrid method, online or whatever, it's going to be a bit of a challenge. So you've got to think about ways, and I encourage you to have that open mindset to sort of think like, how can I help this patient? Because at the end of the day, that's what we got to be health practitioners for, to help people. And people are not going to get any better with their low back pain, their shoulder pain. Like, people have severe dysfunctions. They're moving less. Generally, people are eating worse. Like, I'm seeing statistics of people eating worse, moving less, more pain. This is not going to go away. Mental issues, like, it's just not going to go away. And especially in colder places, I know, it's warm where you are, but like, it's snowing, getting colder. Like,
it was 32 this morning. I had to scrape my windshield.
Yeah, that's about where we are now. So I thought it was really warm,
it's warming up. We'll be in the 50s today, but okay.
Yeah. So it's really just that stuff. Pain and all that stuff is not going away. If anything, I think it's going to get worse. How we communicate, how we need to deliver is important, because people are, no matter what, I don't see a portion of the population wanting to live normal life, taking the mask off. Like, there's going to be a portion that always wants that, depending where you are. I have some friends in different areas, and that it's like kind of back to normal, so to speak. But like, there's going to be people who are scared. So how do we penetrate that population? Because I can almost guarantee that most places are not thinking about that. They're not really thinking that way. So how do we deliver services differently? How can we be more empathetic for people in those areas? Like, how do we, if someone's has back pain at home, like, how can we sort of help these people? And really transitioning on how you can deliver service, how you can communicate, how you can really change the way you do from a strategic level is going to help. So you've got to really just think on a different level, and know that marketing is going to shift. People are still going to have the same problem, if not more, but you've got to really meet them where they are, and understand them more on a deeper level, and position your service so that you can deliver it. Because one-on-one, you might not have that option forever. Or you're going to miss people who don't want to go out.
Yeah, well, it's the same thing. If you only chase hot leads, eventually you run out of them. You can't grow your business any farther. So in this case, if you only chase the leads who are willing to come in the clinic, you're going to stagnate at some point. Or the world's going to, shift and things happen. And all of a sudden, all these people aren't coming into the clinic again. And that's just what we have to know. I feel like we just can't be surprised by that anymore. Like, that's just going to happen. What are you going to do when it does? And if you can't answer that question, like, that's probably the biggest thing you should take away from today is you need to go write down at least some form of plan for the options that happen, because you'll be able to make better decisions as a business owner. If you're like, all right, if we get partially shut down, this is the plan. If we get fully shut down, debate whether healthcare would be shut down at all in the future, but still, what if it did? Like, what would be the plan? And the reason we know 2021 is probably going to throw us I'll say it, probably just as many loops as we've had this year, because this thing isn't going away right now. It's just not. So if you can go into 2021 kind of having a loose understanding of like, this happens, I do this. If this happens, we activate this plan. If this happens, we activate this plan. When it does happen, you don't have to panic because you've already got your paths drawn out to execute on. And that, therefore, you will make better business decisions and give your chance a better chance to not only stay in business, but maybe even keep growing during all this uncertainty. It will also make you so much more confident to be able to talk to your patients when you have that certainty that, like, I know how the business is going to go if all those things happen. It's going to be okay. You know, I know where we'll pivot. So, Brad, I appreciate you coming on today. This has been great. Really good thoughts for business owners, really in all different places. Make sure, you guys, that you're over communicating. Make sure that you're challenging your strategy of the status quo and looking for other ways. And make sure you have plans to be able to pivot with everything that 2021 will bring. All the goodness that 2021 will be, right? Right, Brad?
It's all mindset. That's all it is.
Anyway, you mean that the world's not going back to 2019 when it hits January 1st? Is that what you're telling me?
No. Doubtful.
Doubtful. We haven't learned time travel yet, guys. Well, I would love to share how other people can find out more about you. I know you have a podcast. I think you got a group. Like, where's the best place for people to connect with you?
Yeah, the easiest way, you can connect with me on Facebook. You can go to my website. It's my name, Brad, BradCote.com. And if you've got any questions, just shoot me a message. I've also got different content based on marketing strategies or whatever I think is going to happen. So love to connect with anyone who has any questions.
Absolutely. Well, thank you again. We hope to have you back sometime on Patients on Demand.
Sounds good. Thanks so much.
Bye.